Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Redonkulous Gaming. This is Veedster, and today we're actually going to be doing a review of kind of a old game that's been kind of reported and remastered for modern consoles, and it's kind of Romancing SaGa 2. The game itself has had, and actually the series has had a quite crazy history. It was a very popular series in Japan, but it really didn't see a lot of transfer into the Western culture. The game itself, again, you had a few localizations, or at least the Romancing SaGa series, as well as the Limited SaGa series, and but these translations and localizations really didn't do that well, and because of this, Square kind of walked away from localizing the series over to Western culture, and it kind of left a big gap in a lot of things that led to missing out on certain games like Final Fantasy Legend 2 and 3, and it would be years before these came about. But as time progressed Square Enix decided to take another chance with it, and they localized Romancing SaGa 2 onto mobile devices. And this really fit well with the game because the game was kind of designed to be played in chunks, and with the kind of behavior of mobile devices of on the go and quick, playing a few rounds here and there, it really, really worked well. And it actually led to quite a success for the game. And with that, it kind of obviously seemed to it fit well with kind of the stop and go behavior that you could have on the Switch with the quick on and off, and so it made it kind of a nice fit for the system itself. So as you can see, as we start playing the game, the game itself is kind of an interesting. It's kind of almost got that classic Final Fantasy look, or Square Enix type RPG look to it, but it has a lot of kind of very creative and very unique type of mechanics that make it kind of different from your traditional Final Fantasy. And some people have loved it and some people have hated it, but one of the kind of unique features of this is, first of all, there was this generational behavior to the game, where as you played along and you got to a certain point with some of your main characters, especially in the main character line, you would switch over from generation to generation over time as you got kind of fulfilled certain aspects of the game, and that was kind of an interesting factor. I think we saw some of that in, I want to say, Phantasy Star. I believe it was Phantasy Star 3, where, as you played through certain chapters of the game, you moved on from generation to generation, and you took on the role of the sons, the daughters, the twins of those. And this kind of plays similar, where as you move along with the game, you kind of move and play with those generations, which is kind of cool. And then the next thing was that your characters had a limited amount of lives, so they had what was called LPs. And if your character died, it was instantly revived after battle. And for a lot of people, they thought instantly, oh, this is so easy, I don't need Phoenix Downs and stuff like that, because my character just comes right back to life after a battle. But what it ended up being was a kind of an interesting mechanic, because if that character, or that kind of support character, ran out of life points because they died so many times, that was it. You had no chance to revive them or recover them, and you had to move on with the next character. And that was kind of the unique thing of this game, was you were able to recruit a large number of characters from around different cities and towns and different places in the world to really help support your main cast in meeting their goals, and kind of fulfilling the storyline. And that was kind of unique, and it reminded me a little bit about kind of the great cast of characters that you were able to find in Shining Force. That was such a great tactical classic game on the Sega Genesis, where you just had this great cast of characters, and you had to develop each of them, and each of them had their pluses and minuses, and you had to consider those factors as you're fighting in battles. And in this, it was. It really made you think about your characters and avoiding putting them in situations where they would die very quickly. But the other thing that was kind of neat about this too was that you had kind of that formation behavior, which led to a strategy. It was kind of it took the Final Fantasy formations to the next level. And if anybody anybody has played a JRPG, they know Final Fantasy. They know that you had that lineup, and if you want somebody that was a caster or a range, you put them in the back row, and it mitigated the damage that they took. But if they didn't do range or they didn't do casting, it also affected the amount of damage they would output. And that was taken to the next level with Romancing SaGa 2, where you could put kind of unique formations, such as the cross, where the person in the back was very well protected and you had a defensive force around him or her. And then you also had like your strength characters on the sides and front, and that really helped to set up kind of your strengths of attacks and to protect the people that needed it much more. One of the things though that was always frustrating for me in this game as I played along was if you were in a run mode, which the game allowed a default run option, that run mode automatically canceled any sort of formation. So you spent most of your times in dungeons instead of necessarily running or even taking advantage of that auto run mode, which kind of questioned why it was even there, into a walk mode, and you only ran by holding down the B button when you needed it. And so it was kind of weird. To me, it bothered me that why have this run mode if you're not going to let me use the defensive capabilities of formations or the offensive capabilities of formations. Go ahead and just take that out together. Just make it a manual process where I do have to click the button to run. But as you see the game, you start the game and you go straight into a dungeon, and you kind of take on the role of Leon the King, and he's there to train his son Gerard, he's very bookwormish, and he had an academic background, academic skill set, but he wasn't quite a well-versed fighter, and the whole goal of it was to bring Gerard out and get him acquainted with and become a more well-rounded prince, in order to help his brother in helping to manage and rule the kingdom as it comes along. And what's made this game kind of cool, and I like it and actually find it unique, is that it's just that you kind of have that risk of permadeath with characters and losing ones that you potentially have built up. And the game is kind of unique, and it plays in a kind of anti-intuitive behavior, unlike other RPGs that we've seen in the past, especially ones that have been built up with the Dragon Quest and the Final Fantasy games, is that you don't want to grind the game. You'll see that I spend a little time grinding, but as you grind, it actually impacts the final bosses and the strengths and powers behind them, and it actually becomes a deterrence to you because the game actually provides a lot of opportunity for you to level up over time. And so you want to definitely, it goes against, and what's kind of cool about the game is it goes against all these things that have been kind of self-taught to you and kind of have been ingrained in you by the Square Enix type JRPGs, as well as a lot of other JRPGs, whether it's Wild Arms, whether it's the Xenoblades, whether it's the Star Ocean series, the Final Fantasy series, where you grind, you overpower yourself. This game goes against all that, and that's kind of it made it kind of a unique gameplay, and it really threw me for a loop, and it took me a while to get used to it in order to convert and switch around like that, and have to retrain my mentality on how I play games. Now, the other thing that I always do, like these games, that it gets me is you check every barrel, you try to look at every single bookcase and every armor stand just in case something's in there, looking for your elixir, looking for potions, but you really don't have that here. And some of that kind of instinct again goes against what you've been trained to do with all the other Square games. So the game itself is a blast. I love it, and I actually love the strategy behind it. After playing it a lot more, in the beginning, you'll kind of feel like there's a gap in it. It just feels like it's lacking. But as you get along into the game and you get deeper into it and realize the strategy and the tactics involved in order to succeed in the game, it really becomes quite enjoyable. And it's one of those games that I have really, really been just sucked into, and I love it. And as a final backstory of it, again, your whole point is to, you know, as you're going to try to go through the prologue and get through the aspects of, teaching Gerard how to become a fighter as well as an academic, you find out that Avalon is destroyed, and your whole goal is to, you have this goal to get revenge, and get revenge against the person who caused the destruction of your capital and your empire, and also to rebuild it as you go along. And that leads to you moving through generations to generations in order to successfully get to that. And there are points where sometimes you start forgetting about the revenge, and you're so focused on rebuilding the empire that it's a unique aspect, and it makes you reevaluate and rethink the game. So anyways, I hope this review gives you an idea what the game is, and as well as some of the fight scenes and stuff you've seen in the game. Hope it gives you some feedback to be able to make a decision on whether you're going to like it. Again, for me, I love this game. I really enjoy the story. I really enjoy the kind of unique tactics and kind of anti-mentality behavior or kind of habits that have been taught by the Square game set. So I feel that the story itself deserves a good solid 8 out of 10, and the gameplay itself's about a 7 out of 10. So the game, I think it's a fun game. It's one of those that I think I can understand why it had challenges with translations over in Japan, but overall, with that combined, the game gets a nice solid 7.5 out of 10. It's one of those that, if you're a classic RPG player, you'll be frustrated, but after you figure out the tactics and mechanics and how the game plays, you'll actually enjoy it. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, guys, if you like the review. Also, make sure to throw a like or even give a comment if you find things that you didn't like about the video and you feel that we need to do to help improve, provide information for our reviews to help you guys understand the games. And make sure to visit our website at redonkulousgaming.com and follow us on Twitter at RedDonkGaming.